Big news coming in from Mahindra, a brand new logo that obviously points to a new direction. It's also a very sure sort of a look at its SUV portfolio that's going to start coming into its own. Always an SUV specialist, no doubt, but really the focus that we're seeing from Mahindra as we go forward into a new era of modern vehicles, well, that focus will only become stronger. That's what this new logo tells us, but it tells us a lot more as well. Let's get more on that from the man who needs no introduction on our platform for sure, and certainly is someone you know very well. There he is. It's Pratap Bose joining us right now. Hi there, Pratap.
Hi Sid. Hi Sid. Lovely to see you after a while. It's been a while, of course. You know, the first time we are meeting since I joined Mahindra's 5 or 6 weeks ago. So it's always a pleasure to talk to you, and of course all your listeners, viewers, fans, fanboys and girls, name it. You've got such an incredible following. So always nice to speak to you, Sid.
Takes one to know one. Look who's talking. I mean, I know you've got a whole lot of them as well, but thank you. And yeah, I mean, you're the newbie right now in the group, right? I mean, you said just 5 to 6 weeks, and yet you sort of jumped straight into the deep end. A new logo, a brand new car coming very soon, the XUV 700. So lots to talk about. I'll jump straight into it. New logo. I think that is the big announcement of the day. There is a lot of excitement around it because some people saw it coming, some did not. Straight away, let's jump into it. Your thoughts, your involvement as well?
Yeah. So, Sid, of course, like you mentioned in your opening, opening lines, the sort of the company and the SUV business is now really very, very focused into doing, what we know best and really playing to our strengths, and those are, authentic, unmissable SUVs that allow people to, what we call explore the impossible. So, as soon as I came on, me and my sort of management colleagues and, of course, Rajesh and Vijay said that, look, Pratap, I think we need something, we need a new logo to symbolize, to actually represent all the changes that are going on internally. And like you said, the cars are, or the SUVs are much more technically advanced. The design is getting to yet another level. So we really needed something to express, the change that was happening internally and show it to the outside world. And, I think nothing better than a new logo which represents that.
All right, so I just had a little glimpse of the logo go up while you were speaking. Now, talk us through the logo itself, because, of course, with any logo, the endeavor always is that, you want people to sort of see it and see things that you want them to see, and then the things that, that they will perceive from it. So, first things first, what are the cues you're supposed to pick up from this logo? Let's talk about that.
Sid, you actually summed it up perfectly. There are some things we as companies like people to see. All of us stand for something, right? So that's something you want to see. But we also want a relationship with the customer, an emotional journey. And I think a good logo is the one which reveals itself or reveals its meaning over time. And, and everyone who sees it, interacts with it, holds it in their hand, maybe on a key fob, they will find some meaning to that logo. What we wanted to project, I can, clearly tell you, is I wanted the return to the two M's, M and M. I think the original first ever company logo had two M's. They were like hands. I think holding a hammer, and I wanted to bring back that M and M. So you'll notice that in the central part of the logo, there's actually a very stable, strong, M, almost within a square boundary. And that represents, 75 years of the company. It represents all the people who've come, before us. We are only here because of their efforts, So it's a nod to that. But building on that, there's a more expansive, explosive, bold, our Twin Peaks M, which we call the Twin Peaks M, that grows out of it and forms the outer boundary of the logo. So that's one level, two M's. The second is, of course, in perspective, you have the sky and then you have the road. And that is separated by a very slim gap. It's a very deliberate gap. And that I call the window of opportunity. So our vehicles let you drive through that gap and find out what's on the other side. And of course, lastly, there's when I say explore the impossible, there's a X between both the logos on the inner faces, which again reveal themselves. Now, a lot of people, sort of wonder why logos, many logos are going two-dimensional. I was very keen to keep the logo three-dimensional to actually pick up different aspects of the logo and the symbol as you see it in different lighting conditions.
I have to say, I picked up on a couple of things as well, and of course, it's interesting because it sort of course, aligns with what you're saying. I am, of course, slightly, privileged in a sense to be able to have access to some of this information, to be fair. But two big peaks, like two giant mountains, also kind of talks to the whole adventure, exploration, SUV-ness of the brand. And the fact that this is a logo that is for the SUVs. This is not the Mahindra group that's changing its logo. It's not all the automotive verticals changing their logo. It is SUVs. So that part was important.
Yes, correct. Sid, I think if you see the SUVs in terms of technology, image, market, position, all of that is literally growing into a complete sort of world of its own, and I think customers expect something which is quite different from SUVs in terms of sophistication and all of that. So, coming to that point, actually, the logo will also be reflected on our physical and digital assets. So physical would be, our showrooms, the vehicles, of course, anything else that we do, in print, all of the company materials, and of course, digital assets, mobile applications, websites, etc. So the application of the logo is really also much, much beyond, say, the vehicle itself. On the vehicle itself, it's in 4 or 5 very interesting places that many people don't pick up, and we can perhaps talk about that as we go on.
So Pratap, we will talk about all of those things for sure, because as you said, the logo represents different things to different people, but it also represents different things on the product itself. You've got how three-dimensional should it be? Is it metal? Is it plastic? The two elements that we saw, are they separate or are they joined? So are they two sort of separate pieces that are brought together? Where does it go on the front of the vehicle? Is it on a paint backdrop? Is it on a plastic sort of a paneling? Keeping all of that in mind, obviously, is what leads you to the final design. But what was your idea?
Yeah, absolutely. Sid, like I said, the application across 2D and 3D media is fundamental, and also the scale. I think if you see in the film, we've shown it at monumental scale. It's almost as big as those mountains, etc., that we just spoke about. So it's got to work at that scale, but it's also got to work at maybe if it's 5 or 6 millimeters on a key fob, it's got to have that same effect, that same richness, that same value. So we have to think as designers of that entire range of applications. So, on the front grille, for example, which is the most obvious part where you would put a new logo, what would the background be? Sometimes, see, there's a radiator behind. Does that impact the visual of the logo? The radiator showing through the grille. How shiny should the bezel on which you put the logo? How shiny should that be? Then, of course, a matter very close to your heart and mine, Sid, is safety. So we have front impact regulations.
Yeah.
The logo can only project a certain amount beyond the car. So how do you lose the sharpness while doing that? It's also on the horn pad. That means when the driver airbag deploys, none of that logo should split, and no shards should actually hurt the driver or any of the occupants, because that's an explosion inside the car. So there are many technical considerations as well. And as you said, a good logo is the one which yes, you imbue some meaning to, but also which the users find their own meaning over time. And another interesting area, Sid, is on the wheel hub centers. That's another place, because that's the only part really even more than the steering wheel, which rotates continuously. So what does the logo look like when that wheel is rotating? The back of the car, see, in many cases, the back of the car, the logo goes straight onto the bodywork.
Yeah.
So now suppose the car's color is white or silver, does the logo still show through? So that's where, the three-dimensionality, that factor really comes into play.
So the XUV 700 will be the first car to get it. I think that's obvious.
Yeah.
I know that, and I know that everybody probably thinks that you have designed this car miraculously in the last five weeks. But of course, let's set the record straight. Taking a car to its final design is a very long process. But that said, given your involvement with the logo in the last few weeks, etc., how excited are you to see it appearing on this car first?
No, Sid, you're right. A lot of people, since I was going to join the company, or since I joined, when do we see your first work? And, when do we see the first cars? And like you rightly said, the 700 is designed by the current team. They've done a fantastic job on the car. I think, when people will see the car in the flesh, it'll have a huge impact. And, I was very privileged to be able to put a little, final touch on that car. So yes, in a few weeks, me and of course the team, we could come up with a logo, get it certified, get it modeled up, get it tooled, and put it on the car, which is a great achievement. It doesn't happen usually so fast, and I think not having a huge amount of time also helped. We took the logo, I showed it to the senior management, we took it to Anand, we got it approved. So it all happened very quickly, and I think it says a lot about the sort of agility of the company now.
But tell me this, I mean, even with the logo, there was a certain evolution. There was a little, well, not a little, but a lot of work that had already sort of gone into it before you joined. So let's talk about some of that evolution, because obviously, the basic ideas or the basic theme, in a sense, was already in place in terms of what this logo has to be, where should it come from, and what it should depict. So talk us through that. I mean, just the fact that there were these different iterations of it, which allowed you to then arrive at the final logo.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Sid, the team had done an incredible amount of work and very good, quality of work. It was actually their idea to bring through the twin peaks, the two sort of granite basalt sort of monoliths that you see. The impossible. I just wanted to add, like I said, a couple more layers to that, and for me, Sid, therefore, bringing the two M's back was very, very important. I really thought this is such a turning point in the journey of the company.
Yeah.
So a nod to the past that brought us here, and then let's say a vision of the exciting future that awaits us. So I think those two M's are what I've sort of wanted to bring in as another layer over the work that the team had done. And like you said, the basics were in place. The silhouette, all of that, and it just took that one more step of refinement to get to where we are here today.
All right, so let's look at some of these images. I mean,
first one is actually a rock, and they're called ventiforms. These are granite or rocks. They are some of the hardest rocks in the world, but they're shaped by very soft elements like wind and water. So when I was imagining this, I almost saw the logo on the shield or on the grill of the car cutting through the wind and getting shaped by that. So if you notice, the edges are quite sort of sharp and angular and straight, but the surfaces that connect those edges on the final logo are softer. Just like that rock you saw. So yeah, very much inspired by ventiforms, and again, we in companies or in automotive companies, we shape. What do we shape? We shape the hardest materials: steel, glass, plastics, aluminium, metals. We shape them with our emotions. Finally, at the end of the day, each brand, each car is made of pretty much the same thing. What differentiates them is the emotion that goes into creating those products, and that's where this hard with the soft, was something, again, it's another layer of meaning.
It's interesting you mention that because some of these earlier sketches that I'm seeing, all the edges, even the inner ones, are very sharp, but they start to sort of soften up as you go. And
That's right.
The very obvious, for me at least, it's very obvious mountains and adventure and that sort of imagery. But of course, the M starts to show up even more clearly. I want to talk about this one though, where they kind of overlap. It's asymmetrical. Asymmetrical can be fun or can be interesting simply because it gives people the impression of, let me think about that. Maybe it strikes them a little differently. But for you, symmetry did play a big role in moving away from this and going to what is finally the logo.
That's right. That's right. I think symmetry is something that the human eye and the mind can understand and absorb really well. And the other thing, Sid, is that I was mentioning when we were looking at the two options. I was mentioning if a Mahindra car is behind you, and you're looking at it, actually the logo would be flipped. And that's not something, that's not something which I think a logo should do. A logo should work in all orientations. So
any reflection. Yeah, exactly. Sorry? Any reflection. For that matter,
any reflection. So you see it reflected off a glass. You see it, like I said, in the rear view mirror. The logo should always be constant, and that's one of the reasons I was very keen on bringing some symmetry to it. Though the other one, I must say, was also very interesting and unique. But I think, like I said, the layers of meaning were a little more limited in my previous iteration, and then we brought in some more of these layers.
I have to say the fact that it was asymmetrical, for me, looked like a very typical mountain pass where you have one hill and another one sort of overlapping it. And it's also kind of nod to the outgoing logo, right? The one that will stay on farm equipment, etc. The road ahead, which was also an asymmetrical, like a road going one way.
Curving.
But I still accept your point because I think it's important, especially when you're making a statement with something new. You want people to really remember it. And seeing it always in that very absolute way becomes important, I suppose. I want to go back a little bit to what you mentioned about the products that you will design, and everybody's been asking you when that first car comes. I know that's still some distance away because the 700 was already sort of talked about as being ready for launch. We know that the Scorpio is coming very soon as well. So given that, and given the big success of the Thar that's just behind us, what's your responsibility in taking everything to a new direction? Because in many ways people will say Mahindra needs that, but also sort of keeping that current portfolio or the current legacy in mind. How do you balance that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, Sid, look, a lot of people think that a chief designer comes into a company and starts, wipes away everything and starts afresh. That
can
100
happen.
Out of 100 is
can happen. We've seen that happening.
Can happen, but 99 out of 100, it doesn't. So, but one thing very important to note and understand is that all our products have a 7-8 year life cycle at least, and managing that life cycle of the product, keeping the products fresh, exciting is a very important part of design as well. So everything that we have in our current portfolio needs to be refreshed, will be refreshed, we will bring in some new touches, some new materials, new colors, so there's intervention that can happen at really a smaller scale, to keep these things like I said, fresh in the market and fresh in the customer's mind. And then there's the other side, which is the more significant, either facelifts or all new products. I mean, we've announced such an exciting exciting plan for a whole new portfolio range of products, and including battery electric. I mean, that's another area which is super exciting. Nothing's been done there before. So for us, we are really putting together a team behind me actually at MADE and our technical partners in Mahindra North America. In Detroit, they are putting the architecture together. So we are working on lots of new things as well. So yes, it's always two-pronged. One is what you have, keep it going, keep it fresh, keep it exciting, and the other one is, put some direction into all new products. So that's actually part of the job. And like you see, this little intervention of the logo. I've not designed a automotive logo, and I can tell you, Sid, in the career of a car designer, that's a very, very rare occurrence. Most logos stay for 20, 25, 30 years at least. So I'm actually very, very privileged, and I was very excited that I could take part in something like this.
It's literally your stamp on the car, right? I mean, quite literally.
Yeah, in a way.
It's interesting. Everything that you just talked about, of course, has taken me into a very wide horizon. Very apt, given the logo as well, talking about horizons. But the born electric vehicles that you mentioned, that are coming out of Uli Stohek's team as well as yours. It'll be a sort of a joint thing from, and that's the good thing these days, right? Where design and function and form and engineering all work together. But the point I'm making is that given that today's logo announcement very clearly says sports utility vehicle, is that then fair to assume that the born electrics will have a different logo?
So I think we've not arrived at that point yet, Sid. It'll be something that we will, discuss and decide within the company.
Sure.
How to brand this new family. I think it's it's a
Early
little
days.
further
Yeah.
away. I think the main focus was to get it on the XUV, get it on the next products, and then, by the way, then slowly bring them onto the current SUV range as well. So we have to also work backwards to retro fit the logo into some of our existing. So I think the focus is there at the moment. And I think the born electric, we'll have to see how that all pans out. I mean, the opportunity, like you said, is incredible, because many electric cars, as you know, and which is right for India as well, are electrified IC engine cars. So the
Start
architecture,
with
the
a
platforms,
regular car.
yeah, they're all optimized for IC. So BEV actually gives us a huge opportunity,
Clean sheet.
possibility to bring. Yeah. So how we then treat that from a brand perspective is something I'm sure we'll discuss and decide and reveal as well.
No, and I know you're sort of playing it down, but I also know how excited you would be about that. The whole clean sheet thing. It's great. It's actually great to see that
Oh
it's
my
happening
God,
across
yeah.
the automotive landscape.
Yeah.
What you mentioned about coming onto the existing portfolio, you mentioned earlier about dealerships, etc. Again, these things cannot happen overnight. So we understand there's a transition period. How long do you reckon before? I mean, the XUV 700, of course, drives out with the new logo. That is the first thing. But how long do you think before we see this new logo take over everywhere, pan India?
Yeah, so I think obviously, like you said, there are so many touch points, so many dealerships, but I think it'll happen at quite an interesting speed. Of course, we'll start with the bigger dealerships in the bigger cities, and then go into all our touch points. But this will happen sooner than later. And as far as products are concerned, I think as we refresh them, as
Sure.
we upgrade them, they'll start coming in as well. So it will take a little bit of phasing, Sid. That is natural for any company who does the exercise like this. By the way, you can imagine, I was saying earlier, this logo can end up in sort of places that you don't even imagine. You can think of the little spare parts packaging, you can think of engine covers, you can think of little components. So there's so many areas that the logo has to then start appearing on, let's put it that way. So it does take a little bit of time, but I think in the apparent customer facing touch points like the vehicles and the dealerships, I think that'll appear at pretty rapid pace.
No, and you're right. I mean, some of this is tertiary. It's not just primary or secondary. But
Yeah.
the 700 engine cover, or is that tough to do?
That's a good question. You'll have to wait to see.
You suddenly took me there in my mind. All right. No, so
Yeah.
the good thing is that we'll sort of be right there with you through this journey, watching and really sort of absorbing all of this very closely. That's exciting. I know it's exciting for you as well. You have this new, brand new team that's coming in, new talent that you're sourcing in the Coventry area. So it's all happening. I mean, I'm really very happy and excited for you. And thank you for sharing your thoughts today on the logo and also the road ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Sid. I mean, just if I may, the design team, we are, of course, we've just established the MADE in Coventry, which will be which will be a exciting team. It draws from, all the talent that's available to us in the area. Actually, there are 5 or 6 OEM studios. There's the Coventry University, which is one of the leading universities for automotive design. There's Royal College of Art, less than an hour and a half away in London. And then, of course, all the European design schools and sort of OEMs that we can draw from. So it's a very exciting place to be. I think Coventry is seeing a little bit of a automotive design renaissance, and now we are in the thick of it. Just to share with you, the interest has been phenomenal in this studio. On the India side, Mahindra India Design Studio, what we call MIDS, there too we are adding capacity, adding capability. I think we have a wonderful team there. I've met them all. It's super exciting the work they do and are doing. So we're going to that. And last but not the least, we in the Mahindra family, we have Pininfarina, in Turin, 90 years of automotive creation, sort of behind them. That's a team I can also sort of, draw on as and when needed. So we have a very, very strong now, or are getting into a position where we'll have a very strong global team set. So that's something actually very, very exciting. In addition to, of course, the cars, the logos, everything else we do, building some of these teams, interviewing people, seeing their, image of what they think about Mahindra is very, very exciting, and it's eye-opening as well. You wouldn't imagine that a student or a designer here in Coventry working for another OEM comes and tells you things about the company, and it's been a fascinating journey so far.
Well, that actually speaks volumes for the potential as well as the reputation of the Indian industry, I think, and it's great. And it's actually, by the way, you're one of the reasons. You've been one of the ambassadors for it, so I will give you some credit there as well. But no, it's exciting. And what I think a lot of people have missed is that they get so caught up with the SUVs, etc. You'll be looking at everything from farm equipment to scooters to, it's just a huge canvas. So all the more power to you. All the best for this creation of MADE and the rest of it. And thank you again. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Sid, and thanks as always to your team and your viewers. I've got a lot of love and affection from all of you, and I hope through the work that we keep doing, you are our final, let's say, customers in that sense, and I hope the work we keep doing excites all of you as it excites us. So thanks again for having me.
No, I'm very privileged to be able to have this conversation today, because it's a special day, and again, all the best. And we've always had a very open, transparent, honest relationship. I think that's why this friendship works. So as I said, more power to you. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Sid. Thanks a lot.